Well, it started like this.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Then it morphed into this.
Those ads, taking my words about small business out of context, they're flat out wrong. Of course Americans build their own businesses.
And now this, a tweet from the Barack Obama Twitter account saying, if you or someone you know owns a small business, share how President Obama's policies are helping it succeed. How did you feel when the president made that remark, you didn't build that? I mean, what was the first emotional reaction to it? What do you think?
I used to get angry. Now I'm just disgusted, because it's very clear to me that he has a general, an obvious disdain for small business and for what small business people stand for, which is limited constitutional government, free markets, rule of law, private property rights. I think that's an anathema to him.
My own view is that what the president said was both startling and revealing. I find it extraordinary that a philosophy of that nature would be spoken by a president of the United States.
Now, that was a president in a new ad trying to undo the damage of his ridiculous "you didn't build that" comment. Now his answer is to blame Mitt Romney for taking him out of context. Well, the RNC and American Crossroads decided to put the president back in context in a set of new ads.
Okay, fans, let's go to the fumble of the week. Barack Obama drops the ball on his own 1-yard line.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
The Team Obama contests the call.
Actually, he didn't say that.
Twisting my words around, they start kind of splicing and dicing.
Those ads, taking my words about small business out of context. Watch the tape.
You heard the man. Let's go to the tape.
You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Oh, nobody else made that happen.
Watch the tape.
You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Sorry, Mr. President, the tape's pretty clear. You're just out of touch, out of ideas, and you're out of there.
Because I think in his mind and in his heart, government really does come first.
Well, I guess that it would be more convincing if our unemployment level were at 8.2%.
The bottom line is this man wants socialism.
I will be held accountable. I've got 4 years.
You're going to know quickly how people feel about what's happening.
That's exactly right. And a year from now, I think people are going to see that we're starting to make some progress, but there's still going to be some pain out there. If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
When the president was elected, he talked about hope and change. Whatever happened to hope and change? Now it seems he's just coming right out of the box with these old-fashioned negative ads.
By starting negative, by going extremely tough and extremely hard, looking conventional, and frankly running ads that are inaccurate.
Barack Obama's campaign and allies will run more negative ads against this Republican nominee in 2012 than have ever been run in the history of the world.
Whatever happened to hope and change?
What did we get? National debt over $15 trillion and climbing. Unemployment above 8% for 40 straight months. An ongoing economic crisis with no end in sight. He tried. You tried. It's okay to make a change.
Make sure you're drinking water. Bend your knees. Don't stand up too straight. The paralegals will be, or the paralegals. You don't need lawyers.
The private sector is doing fine. Over the last 15 months, we've traveled to every corner of the United States. I've now been in 57 states, I think 1 left to go. On this Memorial Day, as our nation honors its unbroken line of fallen heroes, and I see many of them in the audience here today, our sense of patriotism is particularly strong. There's a lot of I don't know what the term is in Austrian, wheeling and dealing. Representative of the extraordinary work that our men and women in uniform do all around the world. Navy Corpsman Christian Bouchard. Corpsman Bouchard, the men and women like Corpsman Bouchard.
He doesn't know what a corpsman is. That drives me nuts.
But the funny thing is, now we all know how he's going to win the election. He's got extra states.
When you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody. The Cambridge police acted stupidly. Shovel-ready was not as shovel-ready as we expected.
This is my last election, please. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility.
I transmit this information to Vladimir and MSNBC.
My last election. After this, I'll have more flexibility. I will convey to Vladimir. I mean, what is that?
Well, what Obama is saying is he's saying to the Russian president, look, if I told the American people now what I intend to do on missile defense, what I intend to give up, they would not vote for me. So let's wait till after this deal is done, I'm reelected, and then the real Obama can come out. So he's confessing in a way that he has a hidden agenda. He's just not letting us know what that is.
Indignation. I wanted to get your sense of something here. My colleague George Stephanopoulos last week talked to you about Harry Reid's accusations that Mitt Romney did not pay taxes for 10 years, came from an anonymous source who went so far as to talk about it on the floor of the Senate. Back in April, you were accused of favoritism by an anonymous source, to which you said, let me put it up here on the screen, quote, I don't know what they're talking about. Those famous anonymous sources that never have the nerve to actually say what they're saying make accusations on the record. There was indignation there. Where's the indignation now about Senator Reid quoting anonymous sources?
I'm actually really glad that you brought this topic up, because it's another opportunity to talk about the secrecy, the penchant for secrecy that Mitt Romney has.
Could you speak to that?
This issue that Harry Reid has raised was not raised by Harry Reid. This issue that Harry Reid has raised was not raised by Harry Reid. There are countless journalists, there are countless voters and leaders who have insisted that Mitt Romney should release more than 1 year of tax returns. He has not done that.
Where is the indignation about anonymous sources that you had back in April regarding this personal concern?
I don't know who Harry Reid's sources are. And that
But should he be quoting anonymous sources? Particularly in the floor of the Senate.
Harry Reid has his own sources.
Should the Democrats be releasing an ad that accuses a presidential candidate of being through inference of being responsible for a woman's death?
First of all, that's a Priorities USA.
I understand.
It's not a Democratic ad.
Well,
it's a Priorities USA Super PAC ad.
Correct.
Which we
Do you
have
deny that
nothing
they're
to do
Democrats?
with it. I have no idea the political affiliation of folks who are associated with that
Bill
Super
Burton,
PAC.
who used to work in the White House, worked for the Obama campaign in 2008?
That is a Super PAC ad that is not affiliated with our campaign or with the party.
What do you think of the ad, though?
What I think of the ad is that there's no question that the ad raises facts, such as that Mitt Romney, when he was CEO of Bain Capital, bankrupted companies, laid off workers, cut their benefits, and made millions of dollars in profit. And that ad points out that there are consequences to making decisions like that that impacted people's lives in a significant way.
But this
That's what that ad was underscoring.
But this idea that the timeline of the ad is such that the direct inference is that because this man lost his health insurance, his wife died from cancer, does not appear to be the case. She had her own insurance with her own employment, lost that insurance. It was 6 years later.
It's really interesting that there's no indignation and the hypocrisy that exists. Where is the indignation on the other side that super PACs affiliated with Mitt Romney's campaign or in support of Mitt Romney's campaign
I don't think that they've ever inferred that somebody has died.
They've inferred that Barack Obama isn't even American. They've questioned whether his birth certificate is legitimate.
A prominent African-American lawmaker isn't buying the White House explanation of Vice President Joe Biden's remark to a Virginia audience last week that Republicans want to, quote, put you all back in chains. The Obama administration says it was a reference to figurative shackles around Wall Street, not literal ones. New York Democratic Congressman Charlie Rangel doesn't think so, telling Perez Notes this.
Was he talking about slavery? You bet your ass he was. Was he using a vernacular? Yes, he was. Did he think it was cute because there were men in New York? Yes, he did. Was it something stupid to say? You bet your life it was stupid.
Right now, companies get tax breaks for moving jobs and profits overseas. Meanwhile, companies that choose to stay in America get hit with one of the highest tax rates in the world. My message is simple. It is time to stop rewarding businesses that ship jobs overseas and start rewarding companies that create jobs right here
in China in 2009. And one of my personal favorites, thanks to the Obama stimulus, Fisker Automotive. Now, they received a $500 million loan guarantee to build electric vehicles. Where? in Finland. And it isn't just the money from the stimulus that is helping those overseas. It appears the Energy Department had enough money laying around to give a company named SunPower $1.2 billion. But some of the solar panels that were used to build a project that they were working on, well, they were manufactured where? In Mexico, not California. Now, make no mistake, this president himself is not afraid to invest outside the U.S. Now, according to his federal income tax returns from 2009 to 2011, he's received more than $2.7 million in foreign gross income. Americans are abandoning all hope in President Obama and his ability to handle the economy. Now, according to a new Gallup poll released today, confidence in the U.S. economy has fallen to the lowest weekly average of the entire year, averaging at -27 this week. That's down 4 more points in just the last 14 days. And this is just the latest example of how the administration is failing you, the American people. Obama and the importance of ideology and why he is this mystery figure to most people. You're saying that he basically hides his true, real beliefs, which I think is evidenced by the last 4 years are fairly radical.
Yeah, if he let on who he is, what his agenda is, and so on, he couldn't be elected. So the key to Obama is a certain kind of a camouflage, and that's what he's really good at. I mean, look at the people who have formed his identity. I mean, he was trained when he was in Hawaii by a former communist, Frank Marshall Davis. At Columbia, his professor was a radical Palestinian activist, Edward Said, a Brazilian socialist at Harvard Law School, a domestic terrorist, Bill Ayers, and then Jeremiah Wright, whose platform can be summarized as goddamn America. These were his buddies.
Now, Mr. Obama has never said Davis was his mentor, Doctor, yet you use the word in your book title. Why?
Yeah, I think he was clearly a mentor, Bill. I mean, he refers to him 22 times by the name Frank alone in his memoirs, dozens of more times via pronouns, other forms of reference. He's in literally every section of the memoirs, not just the first part in Hawaii, but Obama mentions him when he gets to Europe, Africa. When Obama gets to Chicago, the first thing he does is he visualizes Frank Marshall Davis. And ironically, it was Davis himself who found himself professionally and politically in Chicago, just like Obama did. So, I mean, I'm a historian. I'm a Cold War historian.
That Davis's influence on Barack Obama's political thinking was more than anyone else?
Well, I would say this, that during those formative years, the adolescence, teen years from 1970 all the way to 1979, from the time he was 9 years old until he went off to Occidental College, I would say nobody qualifies as a mentor as much as Frank Marshall Davis.
But Obama, by his own admission, was a stoner in high school. This guy, Davis, lived in Hawaii. He was kind of a bitter guy who didn't like the American system. Obama's grandfather introduced the young Barry, as he was called back then, to Mr. Davis. And then Davis basically gave him advice on life. I don't see anything in your book or in President Obama's book that says Davis tried to inculcate him with communist doctrine.
Well, that's right. No, that's an important point. And I say in the book that you know, the book's called The Communist. It's about Davis being a communist and not Obama. And
Do you think Barack Obama is a communist?
No, I don't.
Because there are some people who do.
Right, and I certainly don't say that. And I think that, you know, what I do in the book is I lay out, it's really about Davis. This is what Davis believed. You know, there's 20 chapters in the book, 90% of them are about Davis. And I think he was an influence on Obama. And I do go through the long list of remarkable similarities. I mean, you've got Davis, you know, bashing Wall Street, calling for taxpayer funding of universal health care, talking about fundamental change, you know, advancing fundamental change, bashing the rich, the wealthy, calling for taxpayer funding of public works projects to keep America out of the Great Depression, attacking General Motors, all kinds of, you know, all sorts of stuff. And I say, okay, you know, does that mean that Obama believes these things because Davis believed these things? No. I mean, these could all be commonalities among the political left. I think really, Bill, what Davis is Davis is another of those radical influences in President Obama's past who I think help explain his intellectual, ideological, and perhaps even political development and how he became a man on the left. And so, I mean, we've talked about Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers isn't mentioned in Dreams from My Father, certainly.
I wrote it. What's that? I wrote the Dreams from My Father. Yeah, we know. You wrote that?
We've talked about Jeremiah Wright. And I think this is probably the most unappreciated and remarkable influence of them all, and especially during those crucial mentoring years.
All right, Doctor, we appreciate you coming on. The book is The Communist.
It makes no sense, and everyone knows it.